Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today in the Study Abroad Experience podcast. Here we talk about study abroad issues. So, if you're someone that wants to travel and study abroad, this is the right place for you to get all the right information. Today, I have a very wonderful guest on my show. He is currently based in the state of Wisconsin. He is in the University of Wisconsin Madison, and he is into biology. So, for those of you in particular who really want to go into the biology field, you can have your first hand questions directed at him and he's going to answer them. So, I'm really, really happy to bring him on board today. He is into biology using computer programming for modeling. He's also into bioinformatic analysis of genomes to understand species and so on and so forth. He's going to do his own introduction for us so he can go in depth. Thank you for joining today. I am your host, Danny Legend, and I bring on stage Bless Manga. Thank you, Bless, for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Danny, for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. And hi to everyone
You're,
who's watching now.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you for coming as well. So, we have been talking about study abroad for those of your followers who really know you. They know you do study abroad stuff, you share content and all that. But we want to have a backstory where you're coming from. We want to know how your background was like. How did you start before coming to the point where you traveled outside? Tell us about your educational background, which country you're from, because we have an international audience as well.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Cameroon, and I was just from a middle to probably below average income earning family in my country. And I lost my mom, my biological mom, early on, and my father had
Right.
to take care of us, and that's pretty tough when you have to
Yeah.
grow up in a home when you have just a single parent. But that's how,
Mhm.
at some point, that's how we started. And I was pretty good. My dad always encouraged us to study, and he encouraged me to always be, you know, value my academic studies. And as such, I took it really seriously as much as I could. And eventually to my we had to have some other setbacks, and schooling was really challenging. My dad also got
Mhm.
remarried, and the family became a bit more
Yeah.
stronger and could support us through secondary school and eventually to the
Right.
university. At some points you have your younger ones drop out because they had to kind of push you ahead in school, with the hope that
Mm.
you'd go, with that education you would find yourself in a position to uplift the family at some point when you succeed. So eventually I made it to the
Yeah.
university in Cameroon, University of Boya, and there I had my bachelor's in microbiology and a
Mhm.
master's. And later on, just immediately after that, I had my master's in molecular parasitology. So, but after that, I decided to step out from academics for a while. I had a couple of mentors at the time who told me I really needed to step back. It's so there's a LMD system where you could just go from bachelor's, master's, and PhD straight. And I had to step back and really look at those that were in front of me. There were offers to do PhD,
Yeah.
and I really needed to ask myself those tough questions. Do you want to
Mhm.
go ahead with a PhD and without really knowing what's out there, right? At the
Mm.
time, it was really a hard decision to make because it
Right.
goes against everything that people in your environment, the academic environment, believe, and you have to make this decision. And eventually, I did. I didn't accept the offer to do a PhD immediately. I stepped out for a while. It was pretty tough, right?
Mhm.
I tried to get a job for a long time. I never did. so, so I just ended up doing some really freelance work sometimes. I started a small company where I was doing data analysis, research consultancy. When that was a
Mhm.
skill I had invested my time, extra time to learn, and it kept me going for that period of time. So, but in between, I really caught interest in bioinformatics. That was around the same time I got my first laptop, and I was
Mhm.
curious. I was going around it, trying to figure out how it works, and it was just fascinating. So, because I'm also somebody who likes to learn new things.
Right.
So I was just going around it, and at the time, of course, because I was starting a company and I didn't have any source of income,
Mhm.
I had to really, you know, think of ways to teach myself programming. So at the time,
Right.
we had internet. You could get internet from midnight, unlimited from midnight to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
would pay 100 francs, which is somewhere around 20 cents or 25 cents, like one quarter a dollar,
Mhm.
somewhere around that. So I had to, and keeping having that money wasn't really that easy. So right, so every night I would try to
Yeah.
put up data, and I would go on YouTube and I would launch downloads, many downloads of videos teaching computer programming. And I'll wake up in the morning, start watching the videos, and I'll practice. Now the issue is
Yeah.
because I don't have internet in the daytime, it's very expensive. I'll usually
Mhm.
now write down the things I didn't understand to download more videos in the night to be able to figure out what they meant. So process was kind of tedious. I started learning R, how to program in R. And sometimes I'll attempt to do, because I was doing data analysis in the company consultancy I was doing, I'll attempt to analyze some data for some clients with R as well. It was pretty tough.
Right.
So I got interested in bioinformatics and really thinking about how computer programming could be applied in my field. And when I researched online, I saw that bioinformatics, computational biology was something that took advantage of programming knowledge. It got me really
Mhm.
motivated. And when I looked around, there wasn't really any program I could do that would train me in that field. So I
Yeah.
started looking around. I started looking out of the country. And at the time, I've heard about so many people travel on scholarships, but I didn't really know how to go about it. So I started researching on my own, finding out what's needed, how to go about it, and all that stuff. And when I did that, I eventually started. So during that period of 2 years, I was applying. I was, just dropping applications and all
Mhm.
of that. It was pretty difficult because there are
Yeah.
so many rejections. Some offers
Painful.
were scholarships, right? Some offers were
Yeah.
partial scholarships, and knowing my background, I knew that no, I wasn't going to be able to afford it, right? So, for example, in the UK, I had a couple of offers in the UK, and
Mhm.
they want there's some extra money you have to pay, maybe partially funded scholarships. It
Yeah.
that was in millions, and there was no way we are going to be able to afford it. So
Mhm.
I had to really focus on fully funded scholarships and looking at those programs where I could apply computational biology. So eventually, I got a fully funded PhD scholarship in Turkey, and I moved
Mm.
to Turkey and I did my PhD in biotechnology and biosafety. And that's where I really got to ground my skills in bioinformatics and computational modeling. We published a couple of papers. We got a grant as well. I got collaborations with researchers in the UK, uh, in other countries as well, even nationally. Because over time, I had to really learn how to um, put myself in a place where I can be attractive for opportunities. So I learned that,
Yeah.
and I figured out, oh, after over time, I started understanding there was something I was doing. I was
Hmm.
doing something right, right. So
Yeah.
I started really thinking about what was it that I was doing that gave me the success. Because when you go to a new country and the culture is different, everything is different, navigating there it can be really challenging. So
That's true.
yeah, so I try to ask other scholarship winners who came frequently to Turkey, Africans, what is it that they were doing,
Mm.
just asking them general questions, and some pretty nice patterns started to emerge. And eventually, when I got a research associate position here in the US, um, I usually like coach friends or random people who contact me, and I'll tell them some of these things. And some of them did
Hmm.
apply them, and they got scholarships. Some got jobs, and more people were coming. So I had less
Yeah.
time to coach more people. And so
Hmm.
what happened now is
Yeah.
I had to create a Facebook platform. And I was like, and when anybody reaches out to me, I was like, just go to the platform. There's a lot of
Yeah.
information there. You can
Hmm.
use it as much as you want. That's how the platform came about. And I would usually find time, maybe during the weekend or during the day, during breaks, to just write something that I read in a book or something that came to mind. I
Came
did,
across. Yeah.
yeah, right. So most of the things I write on Facebook are those thoughts. Sometimes I just write on the fly. I could
Yeah.
be in a bus or um, in the car, wherever. So sometimes there are some typos that are there because I don't revise. I try to write as much in a way that I don't the idea doesn't go off, right? So and the platform has been
Yeah.
amazing. It's been amazing. I've had a lot of feedback. Students who go and apply what I talk about and they get results. Recently, there's a guy who just got a scholarship. He wrote me and he was so happy about, especially when I told that when I write on the platform
Yeah.
about it and how they could actually leverage that in their studies
Hmm.
and propel themselves in academics in general. And they were just so happy. There's a lot of overwhelming positive feedback, and well, that's where we are today. And there's a lot more that we plan to do. The platform,
Mm.
I say, is kind of a prototype because I've seen that
Right.
there's actually need for that information. A lot of youths, it's very difficult to have the right information nowadays. The internet
That's true.
is such a big place.
It's crowded.
It's crowded and there's a
Yeah.
lot of misinformation as well, right? I mean,
Hmm.
academics is really not a very popular topic now because people are like, well, school is a scam, there's all of that. But
Yeah.
I try to make people understand that it's, the system probably doesn't work now, but you
Hmm.
can use the system, you can flip the script and make it play
Mm.
to your advantage. Yeah, so that's
Mm.
where we are today.
Wow, I like that. You can flip the script. You can flip the script, guys. That's a very important. Like it just hits me like wow. So you don't
Yeah,
just go through the usual, like you are just passing through the usual thing,
yeah,
but you can make something come out of your schooling. Now that's interesting. So yes, I know you had to back in Africa, you had to struggle for jobs and all that. How? In fact, the question I want to ask is: are you the firstborn?
yeah.
And did you feel any pressure to provide for your younger siblings? Because we coming from Africa, we usually have that pressure. The one who is the firstborn or probably the secondborn, in the midst of many children, have to, you know, bear that burden of having to provide it. Would you say you went through any such stuff?
Yeah, I did. So like I mentioned, there were times when my younger ones had to drop out because they had to make room for funding to send
Hmm.
me ahead. And generally, when they do that, there's the expectation that eventually, when you're done with school, you'd have a better job, a better opportunity, and
Hmm.
you earn enough to uplift your siblings. So there's already that initial pressure. And especially when I got my master's and I decided to take a step back, And now there was that expectation that, okay, now you're done with school, so, and you have a master's, and it's a pretty good qualification.
Yeah.
We are expecting now that you have a job and you take care of your siblings, right? But
Hmm.
nothing was really forthcoming, and
Hmm.
the pressure was really there. And I was lucky that my stepmom and my dad as well, they were still kind of around to help out
Right.
with my younger ones. I wasn't really contributing a very high percentage to their upkeep and all of that. So, but sometimes they were understanding as well, giving me the landscape of how difficult it can be to have a job. But there's always that. If you're a responsible person, there's always going to be that guilt. There's always going to be that conversation you have in your head that there's something you should be doing and you're
Yeah.
not doing it, right. So there was definitely that pressure. My parents were not would they were very, very supportive, but you don't want to, if you're that age, 25, and you have a master's. It's really not a very good place to be if you could help out in a way that
Mm.
helps those who have pushed you ahead to get to where you were. So I did feel
Mm.
that pressure a lot, and my dad got sick as well at some point, and uh, you know, he couldn't bring in the income he used to, and the pressure just got even higher and higher and higher. So yeah, I think it definitely did contribute also,
They contribute.
um, that push to really look for something that's really going to be substantial.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need that resilience to be built in us as young men and women coming up, and it kind of like prepares you for responsibilities ahead. All
Yeah.
right. So moving from the personal life, now I want to look at having to write an SOP. Many times, in fact, I've not seen a school that doesn't take a personal statement or a statement of purpose. I'm yet to see one that says that, what, just send your CV and then we are going to give you the admission. I'm yet to see one. Maybe you know of one, I don't know. But I realize that every school is asking for some kind of statement. So how important is this SOP, and what are the key elements that will make somebody stand out if they should write one?
Yeah. So I always tell people on my platform that whatever document is required of you, it's rather an opportunity for you to stand out, right? Why? Because if you're required to send just your CV, it can be very difficult to tell a very good candidate or tell between candidates. Select one that's really good, just looking at the CV, right? If you are
Right.
having 1,000 applicants and everyone has a bachelor's degree, 4.0 GPA, 3.5 GPA, and some have been on internship, some haven't, and some, you know, how do you tell who's the person
Yeah.
that, you know, you need a bit more rounded information about that person. And the SOP is usually one of those documents where you're able to say, present another side of you. And
Hmm.
generally, because it's just like the word says, a statement of purpose,
Right.
you want to focus on purpose there, right? And most people, their purpose would always be drawn from their background story and
Mm.
why, how did you get to this point, and what are you looking forward to? A lot of what we do as human beings are meaning driven. People who are really successful,
Yeah.
and you can predict somebody's ability to probably succeed later in life, seeing the kind of
Hmm.
meaning,
Yeah.
what really propels them. I think the statement of purpose gives you the opportunity to tell that story. And if you're able to tell your story in a way that um, links your background story, how you got where you are, and how you're able to use that to um, how you're able to connect that with the values, with what the scholarship stands to offer, and really looking at how that would fuel the purpose that your purpose for doing whatever thing you want to do. I think if you're able to present those in a way that connects, that tells a very good story, you're able to write it coherently, nicely, and easy to read in a 1.5 page, you give yourself an advantage over somebody who
Mm.
probably doesn't do the same. And mind you, that most students will not, just seeing that you have to write a statement of purpose, they are defeated and they don't write it, they don't participate. Some of them could have been very good candidates, but then you've selected some people who probably don't think about the efforts they have to put in to get something that they really want. So, thinking about it as
Yeah.
an opportunity for differentiation, it's a good place to start.
Awesome. Now, with the rise of things like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and all that, would you say people should use that to write a statement of purpose? What is your take on that? AI.
So, so, so the main thing I focused on when I mentioned the statement of purpose is your story, right? Your background.
All right.
AI is a very good tool to do generic things that you can easily automate. So it could
Mhm.
correct your grammar. It could make your writing more coherent. It could make your writing free of typos, little errors. It could suggest an outline for you to think about. There are so many people who freeze at the idea of a blank page, right? You open that Microsoft Word document and you don't know
Yeah.
where to start. So AI can give
That's
you an
that. Yeah.
outline that you use and write. But AI is not going to tell a story of how you got to where you are, right? All of that information, that personal stuff, that that thing about you that's going to connect with the other person reading your statement of purpose. AI is not going to produce that because that has to be
Yeah.
you. It has to be authentic. So you have to be the one to do that. Now I know that it's very popular to see samples of statements of purpose online. I usually try I do publish it sometimes, but to help as a guide. But I try to not
Yeah.
publish them because students tend to misunderstand it and they just go edit it, change the name, change the person's name, change the address, and now
Yeah.
it's my statement of purpose, right? The person's applying,
Especially when they're in the same field, right? Let's say
right,
biology, be like, oh, okay, then let me just change the name and then,
right.
you know, yeah.
So, and then you end up seeing that it's generic and maybe they have to write a cover letter. The statement of purpose doesn't resonate with the cover letter, it doesn't resonate with their CV,
Yeah.
it doesn't even resonate with their recommendation letters. And then there's just so much disconnect that it's just so easy. They make the job so easy for them to understand they are not a real candidate, right? It's always good to take some time. It's a tool for introspection to really think, sit down, think about yourself, about your life, what drives you, right? You write it down on paper, connect with somebody who's going to read your statement of purpose. It's a one. Think about having a conversation. You want to have a deep, hard conversation with another person and pour that on that
Yeah.
paper and make it in a way that the other person feels what you want them to feel.
That's very, very insightful. So I have a couple of comments here, but then I'm going to take them as we progress in our discussion. So, guys, if you're watching Facebook, YouTube, and X, you can just put in your questions in the comment section and we are going to attend to them. So, Bless is going to answer them when the time comes. Thank you so much. All right. So, we've spoken about SOPs and how AI could also help you with some pointers or guidelines, but not to necessarily write everything for you because it's your own story. Now, let's talk about the brother of the SOP or the sister, CV or the resume. Now, when it comes to that, how should students tailor their CVs to stand out when applying to universities abroad? especially if they are from non-traditional background or they have limited work experience?
Right. So, so there are many ways I try to look at this. So on my platform, the last time I did a challenge where I just invited applicants on my platform to submit their CVs, and I'll go through
Yeah.
their CVs and give them feedback. So I had um, applicants from over 6 African countries submit their CVs,
Yeah.
and there was really a nice pattern, something really common that emerges. It didn't really matter where the person was from, but there were some really
Yeah.
common mistakes. And a CV is a document for first impression, right?
Yeah.
And I always ask them, think about it this way. Each time when you meet somebody for the first time and that person makes an impression on you, why does that happen? You say, okay, maybe because the person did something outrageous, or there was something about the appearance that was just out of the ordinary and all of that. So first
Hmm.
impressions are generally not going to be normal things that you would
All right.
you easily see, but you that's actually what you see in your CV, right?
Mm.
You have your normal education and all of that stuff, or your say for example you were an intern, you list your task, or I followed the boss orders, I came to work early, I did my papers, I submitted, right? Those are things that it's going to show up all the time. And the person who
Yeah.
reads it will, after reading a couple of CVs, you just start predicting. But there are going to be a couple of who stand out. One way to stand out is to focus on results, right? There's this famous
Mm.
framework, the STAR framework, to write tasks, to write what you did at a job, right? You want to use that framework to pop out results, key things that you've done. You need to be conscious of whatever organization, whatever place you've worked at. You need to be able to articulate what your contribution was to the overall goal of that place, right? If you're able to do that, then you can quantify some of the results that you got and you can write it down in a CV. So that's for someone who has had some work experience. Now, if you've not had work experience, so you're likely a fresh graduate, maybe an undergrad. So you can have volunteer experience, you can have community work that you've done, because scholarships prioritize that community work, that sense of community. You have to show that you're not somebody who's just been to school, has good grades, but you have also been contributing to society in some way. You're a well-rounded individual. So
Mm.
it can be maybe some community work you did while in church. I know that many African youths have groups they belong to in church. It can be
Yeah.
community work that you've done in church, or just around your neighborhood, or if you've joined an organization, you are doing some voluntary work. That's helpful as well. And you can also mention some of the relevant courses that you took in your undergraduate program. So
Hmm.
if you're applying for a program in biotechnology, you can mention a relevant course that you did. That could be like microbial biotechnology,
Yeah.
just under your education section, maybe two or three. Or you could talk
Hmm.
about, you could put the title of your project if it's going to be relevant to what you're applying for. So whoever is reading can know that, okay, this person has had some previous experience doing this
Yeah.
kind of thing, has some skills. Um, so you want to focus on those, and you can you can also try to get some online courses just
Mm.
as
That's
a
true.
way to show that you're not just somebody who just learns the syllabus, right? You want to also be
Hmm.
curious, to be able to learn other things. Uh, this is you will not be taught everything in the classroom. So you want to put some other relevant courses that you've done in your CV. And the community participation, leadership positions, and all those things are very critical. So if you're that kind of person who is in school right now and you're thinking about traveling abroad, I know that having jobs can be really tough, but try to find a place where you can do volunteer work or try to join some community initiatives and really um, put some effort into doing something for the community. You can also participate there are so many programs around that want youths to participate in. Those ones will give you a lot of experience that you can put in your CV. So it's something that you really think about while you're still in school. So there are school clubs that you want to join as well, because those
Hmm.
give you a lot of exposure. There's a lot of um, sometimes leadership positions that so it doesn't have to be the president anyway. You can be anybody in the
Yeah,
executive, you're in a leadership position. And you can also talk about those, right? So if you have the opportunity to join those clubs in school, you should take them. And the other one that always is a big problem is recommendation letters, right? Students um, they don't create that relationship with their lecturers while they're on campus. And
that's
it's
true.
something to start thinking about really early because else your CV is going to be um, without a recommendation section. You can't list a couple of people who
Yeah.
recommend you. You want to think about that. So having good grades help. Um, you want to generally stay in a second class upper or first class. Um, Having a second class upper, sometimes second class, first class would give you that competitive edge. Scholarships award they reward academic excellence, so you want to be in the most excellent position you can. And yeah, so by so doing, you've taken care of the education section, the experience section. If you've had any experience, talk about it, focus on results. If you've had any volunteer experience, if you don't have, you should start thinking about it now. Get some
Hmm.
other extra skills, do some extracurricular activities, um, create good relationships with your lecturers. And then when you think about all of this early on, then you can start seeing your CV coming together in a way that can really, distinguish you from other people.
That's so great. I like the way you compose the essentials of the answer. It's very, very vital, and I really appreciate that. Now, we've handled our CV, SOP. Now, let's talk about the GPA. Let's say I have a GPA of 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, or 2.8 out of a scale of 4, and I have a good SOP. Yes, I have a good CV. Do I still stand a chance to get a full scholarship looking at my GPA because other students even scored better than I did?
Yeah, so scholarships are um, they can so because you don't know the pool of other applicants that have applied with you, there are so many things that could play in your favor. Now, when a scholarship is announced, unless they've specified the GPA range that they want. So if they specify that they want somebody with a first class GPA or a second class upper only, there's no point at applying because you will not meet one of the eligibility requirements. But sometimes the GPA is not mentioned, right? And we can't really know how much academic excellence weighs in determining who the winning candidate is going to be. So there may be other things that they are focused on. If it's a scholarship that's entirely focused on grooming leaders, right? And because you um, because you've been involved in so many leadership initiatives, maybe you were the president in your club, you were the president in your church choir, your group, all those other extracurricular things, or you had this community project that you were leading. You could make the case for that you might not have like really high academic achievement, but you've groomed yourself as a leader in so many ways. And
Mhm.
depending on how the scholarship sees it, which one weighs a lot, you could stand a chance of winning over somebody who has even a first class GPA and doesn't have any other experience to show for, right? So there are
Right.
so many other things. There's the strength of your recommendation letters. If you've written a good SOP, that's good, right? And if they required you to write essays and you wrote a really good essay and you have a really good project, you could stand a chance of winning over those that have even brighter academic achievements.
Awesome. So there's still hope for people that have, in quotes, a low GPA to also win full scholarship. So it all
Yeah,
boils down to how you prepare yourself, I believe, and the
yeah, and
factors
there's
you consider.
right, and there's also the level of education. So GPA weighs a lot for undergraduate programs, right? If you're going
Mhm.
for a postgraduate program, masters or PhD, sometimes the GPA takes kind of a backseat. And what really stands out is your ability to research, maybe some teaching experience that you've had. If you've had work experience on added on that's even helpful. But you want to have other things, right? You want to have other
Yeah.
things that make up for that gap. Really good achievements.
So another question I have on my mind is, will a school accept you as a research assistant, even if you have no research background?
Yeah. So if you're an undergrad going in for a master's program, I know some schools have research assistantship for master's programs.
Yeah.
Your project in your undergrad is some form of research experience. Not really that much, but some form. But also the assumption is, as a master's student, you would be trained on the job how to do research. So, master's students learn, I would consider that the basics of how to do research, form hypothesis, where you get all that information in the undergrad, but you really get to apply it for a longer period of time as a master's student. So I think most of the time professors do not expect you to have that much, a lot of exposure. But
Experience.
if you're
Okay.
applying for a PhD, right, the expectation goes up a bit. Now, not
Yeah.
really like you have to have published. You could still be accepted. You could still have a research assistantship position. Um, but you also want to maybe talk about your master's project. Like you didn't just do a 1 year master's and you never did any research, right? Because then you have to think about other people you're competing with for that same position. And PhD students are given a little bit more freedom. The supervision is there, but it's not that much. So you need to have the basics to be able to, take it from there. Else, you're just going to be another undergrad who needs constant supervision, and advisors generally don't have time for that.
They
And
don't
then
have
if you're
time
going
at
in for
all.
a postdoc, right? So if you're going in for a postdoc, the expectation goes even up, right? You must have published in your PhD. Some schools might even require you to publish on specific journals, like really high prestigious
Mm.
journals.
Yeah, some
So the
A-star
requirements have
journals and
been
all
right. So,
that.
but the
Yeah.
hope is not always lost if you know how to account for those things that make your application file really weak.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So I want to ask this question, and then we also share your social media handles and then take a couple of questions. So, guys, if you are watching, interviewing Bless, he is a Cameroonian based in the state of Wisconsin now, pursuing, he is a research associate. Okay. So he's into biology as well. So if you missed the early part of the show, that is just to give you an overview of who he is and where he's coming from. Okay, so emailing professors, is it required that before you get awarded on full funding, you should have emailed and been in contact with a professor, or you can just apply and happen to still get a full scholarship without having to interact with a professor?
So it depends. Some scholarships are so there are different kinds of scholarships. Some scholarships are just like general, maybe government or institutionally funded scholarships that would get really good students, and then they would send the students to particular universities. So the scholarship board just brings students. Oh, these are some really smart students. They fit into your program. You can have them,
Mhm.
train them. You don't need to write any professor for that, right? You just have your scholarship. You come with your funds and you go to school. When you really need
Mm.
to email professors is generally postgraduate studies upwards, where a professor might have a grant, might have a
Right.
research project, some funding, and they talk about it on LinkedIn or on Twitter or wherever, or maybe on their website, and they're looking for students, right? That's probably where you want to email a professor and ask about the project, say what you have that you can offer. And also, sometimes there are some schools that require you to get a supervisor first. And if you get a supervisor, somebody who is able to um, provide that guidance, then you can proceed in the application. So it ultimately really depends on the program. That's why the first thing I always tell um, students on my platform is you need to read, right? Usually because I often share scholarships on the platform and I'll put a link for people to apply. And then somebody comes down and says, "Oh, my country is not there. Oh my God, I don't know what's going on." I'm like, just spend 5 minutes and read what the page wants you to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be different. There are so many different kinds of scholarships out there that the requirements just vary. So the only secret there is to read, understand what they want from you, and do just that, right? So you can email professors sometimes they tell you we don't have any influence on the admission process. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. You can email a professor and he tells you, okay, I have a grant. I see that your CV is good. You can be part of my grant. Or you can email a professor and tell, okay, I could supervise you. Go contact um, the graduate school or the admissions office, and they'll tell you what next to do. Right? It's just
Yeah.
there's no one size fit all. You just have to always read and find out, know the instructions. They're always clearly outlined on the web pages what exactly you need to do, and you
Need
just
to
follow
do.
that, and everything will be okay.
Right. Thank you so much on that. Yeah. So at this point, I want to just share the screen so that people that want to, do a follow up with more questions can follow your social media. So I'm going to quickly share my screen here, and I believe everyone can see it. Okay. So right here, you can just type his name. So this is his page. Okay, scholarship opportunities, free online courses, professional development, entrepreneurship, study abroad. So it's power packed. Okay, guys, this is power packed. His LinkedIn is also here. You can see he's based in Wisconsin right here. Google Sites. Or you can also visit. I think is this your
Yeah, that's just
personal?
yeah, that's just a personal site I did some
Oh, okay.
time back.
Oh, okay. Right. So his recommendation is also 100%. So guys, I'm bringing good people on the show, not just bringing anyone. All right. And then he has 6 a.m. motivation, a lot of stuff, right? Just to, brain teaser and all that. Now, if you easily want to find posts, I think, yeah, okay. So post photos, maybe you just want to go through the photos and catch a glimpse of what he posts. Okay. So you can just go through just a lot of brain teasers here. Now, get paid to move and study for free in Hungary, BSc, MSc, Italy, Canada. This is Turkey, right?
Yeah.
Finland, okay, Japan. So depending on the country that you want to go to, he has a lot of information there. You can easily go and then, tap into that knowledge base. It's a lot. All right. So do you have any other socials? Where can they follow you apart from Facebook?
So Facebook is a platform where I do. scholarship talk. Um, because my primary audience was to just talk to African youths. I
Yeah.
understand. I would say I'm able to relate um, to their problems, but increasingly I've also had followers from other countries in Asia, Pakistan, India,
Yeah.
and all of that. But
Once in a while they
but
pop out.
yeah, so Facebook is kind of a platform where I can reach that audience. So I just use Facebook for now. My LinkedIn, I post a bit more. I talk a bit more around things, academia and postgraduate stuff. Not really that frequently, but I do. Facebook is maybe I'll expand to other platforms at some point, but I would have
Oh, okay.
to. I mean, if there's someone out there who has an idea on such thing, I'll be happy to work with them on that. But for now, I'm just doing it on Facebook.
Oh, okay. All right. So, guys, for now, he's based mainly on Facebook. If you have any questions after maybe you are watching at a later time and you want to ask a question that you couldn't put here because you didn't get on the show early enough, you can always follow his socials. So, let me take a couple that we have here. I think this was okay. So, this is Joshua saying that he is from Ghana watching live. Thanks for the insightful session. Thanks to Bless as well. Abdullah says, great one. And then this one says, LEC says, hi everyone. I got a conditional offer from the University of Surrey. However, I cannot afford the tuition fee. Any scholarships you can recommend for me to apply for? So in this guy's situation, what are some of the options that a student has? We want to make it a general question now.
So the University of Surrey, where's that?
I'm not even sure. Let me try Googling it here and see. Okay, so that's England. Okay,
All
so
right.
this, yeah, this England.
So so the thing with England usually is they will give you many. They have many partial scholarships. So and England too has many um, government scholarships. You have the Commonwealth. You have Chevening. There are so many of those scholarships. They should have a database. There's a site that's like a database for scholarships in the UK.
Mhm.
And what you want to do there is to find out if there's any of those scholarships that can fund a program or a student in this university where he is currently, and he can apply. But generally, what will happen is you have to go to the university website, go to your program, and find the funding page. Usually, all the scholarships that can cover studies there under that program will be listed there. And if you are able to get any scholarship from from that list, you might have to pay. Right, that's the thing with England. It's a bit challenging to have those
Mhm.
programs. So unless you have a general scholarship that's willing to cover the rest of the cost, or you have some kind of NGO that does that, you might just have to end up. You might just have to pay the cost.
Right. Right. Do you think also probably changing your school is also a good option? Like just trying a different school to just see where, you might have a chance.
So if his offer is transferable, I know that some university systems in the Western world have that system where you can transfer offers, so you can. I'm not quite sure if it happens. It can happen before
Mhm.
you're a student there, but it's also something that he wants to find out. So I would advise him if he wants to look at maybe options on a broad scale. He can write the admissions office. You generally have somebody you can talk to there. You can either make a phone call or send an email, and they'll be able to give you the really specific answers to what he's looking for.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So Robert also says, okay, so this I'm not going to take this question. It's not for me, it's for my guest as well. Thanks for insightful messages as always. Please, can I get connected with a Ghanaian student in University of West Florida to help me get accommodation outside the school. Now, I'm also going to turn this into a general question. How do we connect with students from our home countries that are already in the US or outside? And how was the experience for you before coming to the US? So maybe that way my guests can answer from that perspective.
So I've had many people ask this same question. The funny thing is the answer is so simple and they don't believe it's possible, right?
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Hmm. Yeah.
LinkedIn. So if you just go to LinkedIn, you write University of Florida, you play with the keywords, comma,
Yeah.
Ghana, you're likely
Yeah.
to see some Ghanaian student
To
who's
pop
going to
up.
show up, right? And I
Yeah.
did a workshop on this on my platform. So sometimes I do free webinars where I just teach students how to use some of these things. LinkedIn is a tool that you could play around. You can get, it's too simple. And some people end up
Yeah.
probably not doing it because they feel like, no, that couldn't be the response.
That couldn't be. Yeah.
What
It's
to
too
do,
nah.
right?
Too good to be
But
true.
right,
Yeah.
but you've had people who literally had assistantship positions, scholarships just on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
You write the University of Florida, put a comma, the name of you just put Ghanaian or Ghana, the algorithm will do the job for you, right? Something is going to pop up. If you don't, if if you don't want to, if Ghana doesn't work, use some other keyword, right? Generally, I found out that most
Yeah.
Ghanaians will be in the mining department. Ghanaians are always a bit more in the mining
Yeah.
departments.
Hmm.
Go to the website of the page, look for graduate student, go to graduate student pages, and go and most universities will have their graduate student profiles on their supervisor's webpage. Look at the names.
Right.
You know a name, you know a Ghanaian name if you see one,
Yeah.
right?
You see. Yeah.
Right. Their names will be
Yeah.
there, their
Hmm.
phone numbers, their emails. That's how you get in contact with them. And you write them. You search, look for them on LinkedIn, write them, send them a message. Sometimes it's not you might write their institutional email, sometimes it just flags it as spam. Those emails have a lot of high security. You could
Yeah.
try reaching out on LinkedIn. When you have access to one person, you have access to the entire network in that school. So that's just a pretty simple thing to do. You do
That
it
is very key.
consistently, you get, yeah. So
Yeah. Every time it's going to bring different results, possibly. And then through that, you can just filter. You can even have an Excel for that. I reach out to this, I reach
yeah,
out to that, I reach out
yeah.
to, you know, yeah, have it all planned out. So it's going to go a long way to help you. Now, I want you to give us a little bit of information about your visa interview experience. That's one thing that a lot of people dread a lot. I'm going to the visa interview and I'm so scared. How did you prepare? What was the process like? What were some of the questions that you were asked? And then you give us a final word.
There's no point. So you can be nervous because it's something that has a high potential to reward you or to not reward you. But there shouldn't be a reason to be scared, right? Especially if you're a genuine person, you never lied in any of your documents, you never changed your age, right? You
Yeah.
should be worried if you did any of those fraudulent things. But I didn't
Yeah.
have, when I went to the embassy, I didn't have any questions asked. It was just, how are you today? I said, fine. And he just looked at me, stamped my thing, and gave me, and I left. That was it. But other people get questions, right? And based on my research, maybe just talking with other students, usually the pattern is you have to know very well what you're going to do, what
Mm,
program you're going to study, what state you're going to be in, and
yeah.
if you've thought of accommodation, because obviously you don't want to go to the airport and then that's where you start calling people. Where can I go from here, right? Have your accommodation mapped out. Are you going to stay in a hostel, with a friend, with family? Have an idea of what your stay there is going to look like. Know it. If you even know the address of the place you're going to stay, Obviously, if you're in the airport, you need to take a taxi or something, go somewhere.
Yeah.
Know things, how your life is going to be like, as specific as you can. Also, know about the program you're going to study. So sometimes you might fall on an agent who say, I'm going to study biotechnology, right? And the agent has a degree in biotechnology, has a background in biotechnology, and he asks you one or two questions in biotechnology and you can't answer, right? It might start raising some doubts that this person probably doesn't really know what's up.
Doesn't really
And
know.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, and then the other thing is what you're going to do with after you have your degree, or after you have your diploma. How is it going to serve you? You need to know. Now, for somebody who has written a good statement of purpose and all of that, you'll have a good answer to say. But if it's something that you did, many years ago, and you don't have something to say, you want to think about the answer to that. What are you going to do after you have your document, your diploma?
Mm.
And this is where most people have a problem. You have to, it has to be something that you would implement in your home country, right?
Yeah.
So if you say, after having my diploma, I'm going to have a job in the US, I'm going to have a job in the UK, that's a red flag. You don't want to say that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, your pride, because you want to be somebody who cares about your country, you're going to learn to come back to contribute, right? Your priorities might change down the line, right? But have that um, have that focus when you're doing your interview. That's usually the big one of the main questions that people feel. Yeah, and just be composed. Don't be nervous. Right? Nervousness
Mhm.
always suggests something is wrong. Right? Just like
Yeah,
you could be
exactly. I'm
speaking with
gonna be
somebody and
refused. Eh?
right, the person is just
Yeah.
fidgeting and you're just looking left and right, and
Yeah.
it's just be composed, right?
And
And
sometimes they might even think that you're telling lies by the way your
yeah,
body, they really study your body language, you know. When you
yeah,
stand there, you are shaking and it's like is he lying to me, you know? So even if your story
yeah,
is legit, like
right.
you can be
Yeah, and their job there is to really vet you. So you don't want to give somebody, I don't know to what degree they have to see some doubt to deny you a visa, but you
yeah.
want to eliminate it as much as possible. And another thing you could just do is practice. You could go online and get, sometimes I share visa questions on my page. It's something that you
Mhm.
want to practice with whoever you can with, your friends, your family members. Practice those questions, practice answers. Again, there's ChatGPT there. You could tell ChatGPT to spit you a couple of questions that they could ask you and
Mm.
learn the answers to say them in a nice way, not in a crammish way, not like a robot,
Yeah.
but say them in a nice, fluent way. Just a conversational tone. It's just simple conversations. And again, if you have not lied, you should be fine. Yeah.
That is true. Okay, so I'm going to take this last question. It just came, and he says, I'm also going to generalize this. I've been admitted to Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville. Please, I want to ask if there's any external scholarship available for me to apply. So, one thing I've noticed is that sometimes people do get the admission, but it doesn't come with funding. And a lot of times they come to me saying, Danny, how do I get an external scholarship? What has been your experience, Bless, with finding external scholarships or recommending any for people?
So I would give. I also have those kind of questions very often, but it's also a product of laying down the wrong foundation, right? When you scout the internet and they're like, oh, you can apply to this university gives admission letters in 2 days. You can do all of that, right? Oh, this university takes 2.3 GP, you just go, you look for a program, you apply. No, you have to research the institution. You have to research a program. You have to research what scholarships cover that program. There's not going to be a magic scholarship that's out there funding people in any school they want to go to.
Yeah.
Scholarships also work within the framework of partnerships.
Hmm.
MasterCard has partnerships with universities,
Right.
specific universities, that they would fund students they can send to. Chevening, the same, Commonwealth, all those with Fulbright, they have partnerships, they have universities they partnered with. So
Yeah.
they can't just fund anybody for any program that they choose to go to, right? So
Hmm.
the burden there is on you. You have to look at what you're applying for. What are the funding options right from the start? If you see that the funding options there don't align with what you're looking for, there's no point applying in the first place. Because you go, to give you admission letter, now you're looking for funding.
For funding.
Eh,
Yeah.
unless you're considering applying for a loan to sponsor
Hmm.
you. If you're not considering applying for a loan, it's going to be very difficult for you to see some random scholarship program out there willing to give
Yeah.
money to anybody who wants to go to any school of their choice.
Yeah.
Right? You have to do that work first. Then you move now towards when you're applying, you have that information together. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. So just doing it
Yeah.
randomly that way is just dissipating energy um, on things that don't really give you the best possible results. You want to
Results. Yeah.
be really focused on do your research really nicely. 80% of the time of your work should be research, 20% is preparing to your documents to apply.
Yeah. Even speaking about the loans, loans like Empower, they still have partner universities. They don't
Right.
just give it to anybody.
To
Yeah.
anybody, right?
Yeah.
So that research
So yeah.
is
Mhm. Yeah. So with your external scholarships, I would say that, like Bless was saying, try and get the schools that have those funding packages so that you are not stressed out having to go look for extra funding outside. It's a lot of stress. Okay, so what will be your final word for people who are trying to study abroad? You want to come to the US, Europe, even Asia, right? What will be your counsel for such people?
so I'll start with the previous question. Do your research. Do some research. I always write one statement on my platform. Learn how to use the internet. Right. The internet is probably the most one of the most wonderful inventions of our time.
Yeah.
It gives you access to it kind of levels the playing ground, right? You have access to so much information. You have to do your research. Look at the school. What does this sometimes you even have to think about the values that school stands for.
Yeah.
So now this is not to discredit anybody in particular. A Muslim might find it difficult to study in a university that is Catholic. So I'm
Yeah.
taking something at a really high level. A
Okay.
Christian might find it difficult studying in a university that's is a Muslim that a university that's purely has Muslim values, right? You have to do your research. What's the living cost in that place? How much is if there's going to be funding? How much does it? How much would it is it going to cover? How is the housing in the town I'm going to stay?
Yeah.
What how is life going to be there? How much can I bring in that will keep me in that place? The program, does it give you access? So in Europe, for example, you have Erasmus Mundus. You can go around so many European
Yeah.
countries. Does it give me access to that? Does this, all those things you need to have them. You can have a Word document. You can have your notebook. Research all those things. Do you have a community there that's going to help you when you eventually arrive? Usually, when you arrive in a country, you don't know anything. You need some people to help you sometimes.
Yeah.
It's especially useful in Asian countries where you probably arrive, you don't know the language, you can't communicate with
Yeah.
anybody,
The language is a barrier. Yeah.
right? The first days is going to be very difficult. You need to connect with people, you need to understand things. Do you need to learn the language before going there? You need to do all that research. That's the first thing. If you don't know what to research, ask, platform, you just find out what others are doing. connect with somebody on LinkedIn and ask them something, right?
Hmm.
There's that. And then the I'll probably go also to be ready for culture shock, right? So one thing, when you watch movies, it's difficult. It's different when you're watching something on a movie and in a movie and you're actually in that country.
And yeah.
You okay, then they speak this language. Oh, okay, this is how their houses. No, when you're there, it's different, right?
Hmm.
The culture shock. Some people. So when I was in Turkey, right, there was this guy who came. When you're in a town where nobody, people are not used to black people. They don't see black people
Yeah.
that much. And this guy would board the tram, the intercity train thing, and
Yeah,
people
the
will be
Trump.
looking
Yeah.
at him like out of curiosity. They're just staring at him. This guy couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand it, and he left. He went back to his country. The pressure was too much for him to handle, right? But you have to be now some other subtle things that would be a culture shock for you. Be ready for that. Again, you have to talk to people to find out. Right? Those first days is going to be it's going to be a shock for most people. And be ready to work really hard. When you go to a
Mm.
system, the educational system is different, the expectations are different. You have to deal sometimes with pressure back home. You have to work hard.
Yeah.
You have to put your head down, study as much as you can. You're there for a reason. And learn, if you're going to be in that country for a very long time, you have to learn the culture. It's the only
Mm.
way you'll be able to thrive in that environment. Understand the culture. How? Read books, go to some cultural events, make some local friends. They'll teach you a lot. If you're
Yeah.
going to thrive there, you have to understand the culture. A lot of, so for example, in the US, um, the technologies that we see, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those things, they're embedded in US culture. Most of those technologies make sense when you are in the US. When you're out of the US, there are some things you can't really understand. Some
Yeah.
features of technology you can't understand. It's when you're in the US that you get to, oh, this makes sense. This guy just it just works seamlessly here because it's part of the culture. You want to thrive, you need to understand that. Read, connect with people, learn those kind of things. And wherever you go, try to have a good image. Try to be you're representing your country. You're representing your country, and if you go in a country and you're a bad tenant, the next time your brother comes to that country or your sister wants to take a house, they'll say, "Oh, Cameroonians, oh
Yeah.
no, 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 don't give my house
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
Cameroonians."
You
Right?
stain the people.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, Cameroonians are so dishonest. I knew, and Cameroonians, it could be 25 million, it could be 200 million Nigerians, it could be, I don't know, 30 million Ghanaians, and all. That
Yeah.
one person speaks for every other person. Try to always have a
Hmm.
good image. Be a diligent person. Have a good image of your country. So the places where I left, before leaving Turkey, my supervisor asked me, "Do you have any Cameroonians that are interested in this kind of program? I would like to hire them to replace you." Right? In the US, I've seen that. Right? A Ghanaian comes to a department. Right? It's so hardworking. And the peer is like, "Do you have any other students where you're coming from?
Yeah.
There's this grant coming. You can, I see that because you're hardworking, you're giving a very good image
Hmm.
of your country. So it's always good. A small thing, as in, leaving a compound without paying the rent, without, settling your matters, can be, can have a ripple effect um, that affects other people that
What
come behind,
affects me? Yeah. Who are even innocent?
who are even innocent, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the same way that people have paved a good path for you, you also have to do the same for others that are coming behind you.
They're
So,
coming.
well, those are the things that come to mind as, for the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
these are heavy sayings. Thank you so much. We will be brooding over them. So, guests and audience, this is where we bring the show to an end. It's been a wonderful conversation with Bless. So for those of you who also joined late in the show, I recommended his Facebook, so you can always rewatch or re-listen. And remember, we're also on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music in audio form. So for those of you who will be driving, you can still listen. You may not have to be, distracted with the video. You can still listen and then benefit greatly. We're also on X, YouTube, and then Facebook as well. You can follow. We have a Telegram page. We share information every day on scholarships, right? And also give tips and tricks and strategies. Okay, so audience, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for joining and making this conversation more engaging. And thank you, Bless, also for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know international students are very, 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 very busy, but you still made time to join us on this show. So we really appreciate you for coming. All right. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
I believe you're enlightened by this podcast session. Don't forget to stay connected as I'll be bringing you more episode after episode. This is a Study Abroad experience. Then a legend here.